Hi, Joachim. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Regina.
Nice to meet you finally.
I was really curious who I will meet. It was, like that, the tension kind of, you only get the name a couple of minutes before the meeting. So that's why I don't know anything about you. And I would be really keen to. And you said it's 10 o'clock for you?
Yes, I'm based in Manila, but
Oh,
like I said, I'm working on night shift. So I just started my shift an hour ago. So all good from my end.
and what are you doing in the night shift? Typically,
Yes.
if you're not having interviews or kind of conversations with people.
Probably, Joachim, I can start introducing myself since you already asked what I'm doing. So I'm Regina Roberto. Yeah, you can call me Regina. That's my first name. And I've been with Bayer for 10 years, turning 10 years this December. It's actually my first job right after passing the board examination. I'm an accountant. So I'm a certified public accountant,
Mhm.
and I'm part of the enabling functions, the shared service center delivery network here in Manila. So what I do is that I'm managing a team. My current role is actually a team leader. I'm managing 13 people, and we are processing master data requests for North America. So that's why I'm also on night shift. And I'm excited because, Joachim, if you're part of the shared service center delivery network, you do a lot of functions like accounting, source to pay, you post invoices. But I'm excited that you, I think, is coming from the clinical operations, which is something new for me. And yeah, I would also be interested to know about you.
Okay. Yeah, very nice to meet you, Regina. And I guess I'm probably kind of keep you busy with a lot of invoices. So my name is Joachim Luithle and I'm chemist by education. I'm 21 years with Bayer. Started as in research and then did strategic planning and then project management, clinical project management. And since 5 years, I'm heading an organization called Clinical Operations. And actually, this is the organization that is doing all our interventional clinical trials. And since recently from phase 1, including phase 1 to phase 4. And what I really kind of enjoy about that job, among other things, but one thing that is I really enjoy is I'm responsible for 45 countries. So there's a lot of diversity in my organization. And I really enjoy kind of, seeing those people and the different attitude and the different cultures and how people kind of, interact. And this is really exciting, from the US to China to Australia. So a lot of countries, with different backgrounds and cultures.
That's interesting, Joachim, to know, no? And I'm also very curious to know, no, how you're managing a diverse team. Because here in Manila, I'm handling all Filipinos. It's the same culture, but we also talk to different stakeholders. And in Bayer, no, it's really a diverse team. So I'm curious to know how you're managing, how's your total experience on working with different colleagues.
I guess, it's a different, I have overall 2,000 people working my organization. And when you have 13, you know everybody and you know them kind of, pretty well. So it's a different, let's say, the touch and feel is much closer than if you kind of have 45 countries. You can imagine I have not the chance to get to know everybody personally because there's fluctuation and I can't travel to all the countries all the time and meet everybody. So there's no way I know everybody. So how do I lead if I don't know people? And what I think is an important element is a common goal for the organization. Yeah, people, humans need goals, ideas, maybe a storyline, kind of, what is it about? What are we doing and why are we doing? Why is it important? Even without knowing me personally, that needs to translate. And the culture, what do we do? How do we behave? Although we don't know each other necessarily personally, these kind of two traits, a common joint purpose and a common culture needs to translate in the organization. And this is how you lead such a big organization. So it's different. I think you do that differently. And I would be keen how you do that with your 13 people to understand that.
It's 13 people under me, Joachim, no, and nice to hear about your organization. So it's a little bit different, as you've mentioned, because for me, I think it's important to really know my team. I think that's one. It's important to know their motivation. We have these goals, as you've mentioned. It's finding the common goal, but it's also like knowing how to motivate them towards that goal. So I really exert a lot of effort in talking to them once in a while. And I'm also handling a team of millennials. Just to mention, the average age that we have in Manila, it's around 30 to 33. That's the average age. So it's really high on engagement. So it means doing these games, doing these pop quizzes, engaging them. That's one, especially that we're on a hybrid setup. So that's how I'm doing it or managing my team. Really high on engagement, high on discussions, one-on-one discussions to get to know these people under my team.
So do you, in your team, just to understand, do you take decisions together, or do you just, does everybody has, let's say, a big pile of work every day and move through that? Or do you have joint things together that you need to decide on or change or do together?
So I think it's a combination of what you've said. So because in the shared service center delivery network, we have these goals that are passed to us. And we also have this, let's say, there are team goals. So at the end of the day, it's deciding on how we can all together contribute to that goal. So it's saying that this will be my contribution, this would be your contribution. And I think, Joachim, that's what's nice with Bayer, no? Because in Bayer, we really have that structure that we have this contribution statement. You would know how you can contribute to the goal of the organization, to the goal of the department. And that's also, Joachim, why I'm interested to partner with someone who's really a frontliner in the business, no? Because for me, I'm part of the shared service center delivery network. So we really do not know what really the business is all about. So we have like background, what are our products for pharma, for consumer health, aspirin, Berocca. Those are the famous ones. And that's all we know, right? That's all we know. We do our jobs. We have these products. But then I'm interested to know, Joachim, no? Like, what are your proud moments? Because for me, we have this vision, right? The health for all, hunger for none. And in SSCDN, we always relate that what we do will enable other functions to do their jobs. As you've mentioned, we might be receiving a lot of invoices from you, no? But I can imagine that it's more different if you are really someone who's part of the business having this clinical trial. So I'm really interested to know more about that and what you do, no? Connected to our vision, health for all, hunger for none.
Regina, I think that's a very good question. Let me kind of answer what makes me proud at the end of the day, and how that sometimes maybe gets eaten up in the minutia and the processes, and and how that might not kind of be transparent or visible to everybody. So if you have a patient with macular degeneration and you give them a product and they can see again, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? If you have a child in a clinical trial that gets a treatment and can kind of play with their friends without getting kind of bleedings in the joints and so on. These are the things that truly matter in the end. Millions and millions of people have kind of maybe not gotten a stroke and were able to age with their families, play with their grandchildren. This is amazing, and these are the things that in the end matter. What I hope, Regina, is that's what people see maybe who are on the front line, who kind of go to the sites, the medical doctors, the medical affairs colleagues. Maybe not everybody sees that all the time, but you contribute to it. And this is what I'm trying to do in my organization all the time, that this is the sun of our purpose. This is the light, it shines, and everybody should see it. Although you do invoices and you process invoices, you contribute to that. Everybody should be proud who's contributing to it, although maybe in a very indirect way. And you should share that purpose also with your people, because the invoice needs to be processed. The investigator needs to be paid. We can't do those things without paying our invoices. So it's a contribution everybody has, maybe a relatively indirect contribution to it, still a major and important contribution.
Thanks for that, Joachim. And to be honest, I'm a believer, Joachim, of why. like the purpose that we have. No? So in my team, just to share, because my team actually is vendor master data and customer master data. So we are the one creating these accounts, customer and vendor accounts. And for customer master data, Joachim, our service level agreement is 4 hours, meaning when we receive the request from the order to cash team, we need to create the customer account in 4 hours. And at the start, it's really pressuring me, right? Because how do I motivate my team to process a lot of requests in 4 hours? But as you've said, it's always about telling them that it's not about creating this master data request, but afterward, what happens? No, it will enable us to deliver the products to our customers. So thanks for sharing that story, because really that's something that I really also wanted to share to my team to realize what's the contribution that we make in Bayer, that it's connected. You're from clinical operations, we're in Manila creating customer accounts, but at the end of the day, it's really getting the product serve its purpose. So yeah.
And Regina, maybe there's another aspect that sometimes gets also lost because nobody explains maybe why it's 4 hours. But we are not in splendid isolation. There's competition, there's other companies, and we compete on investigators. And for example, if we are able to, for example, in the US, we are able to pay our invoices faster than competition, that's appreciated. That's important to the investigators. And they rather do our studies than the competitor studies. And I'm a very competitive person. I would like to win. I'd want our products to be first on the market and not the competitor ones. So that's why those 4 hours might sound out of context, but they matter. And they matter for our competitiveness. I believe it's a very important conversation we have. We need to link the things we do and the why more clearly to the purpose that we have. And maybe that gets lost sometimes.
Exactly. And Joachim, I'm also, because you've been in Bayer for 21 years, right? So I wanted to know, if I may ask about your career. Is it something that when you started with Bayer, you dreamt of like leading the clinical operations, or how did it went? Because that's interesting for me to know. Especially it's just 10 years, it's my first job. And talking to someone who's been 21 years in Bayer, I'm really interested to know about that.
Okay, no, I didn't dream of becoming head of operations, okay? I was chemist with heart and soul. So I did my PhD in organic chemistry, and I was working on enantiomerically pure cyclopropyl boronic ester, and you don't need to understand it. It's like kind of digging a hole and digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And this is what my kind of, life was all about, kind of understand better how to synthesize those compounds and how to optimize that. And I was, at one point in time, I was even considering to go into science, so chemistry, into university. And I had an offer at a very prestigious university to do PhD or to a postdoc. And then at the same time, I also had the opportunity to come to Bayer and do research. And that research is a different animal than operations. Although it's a little bit like the starting point of a river. It gets broader, but you have to start somewhere. And the colleagues in research are often underappreciated because that's where the whole thing starts. If they don't do a good job, you will never get something to the market. And this is where I started. Then I recognized, I was actually asked, there was a position, and this is a long time ago, back in 93, and I was asked whether I would be interested to be the chief of staff for our CTO, the chief technology officer. At that time, Bayer was a holding, and I did, in essence, strategic planning activities, projects, the bioscience strategy, but also many restructuring projects at pharma R&D at that time. And this is something, maybe an advice, if you look at your own career, you have to listen to, while you can be good at something, but you don't enjoy it. And I recognize that strategic planning, while I think I'm good at it, I hate that the product of my work lands in the trash bin. Because there's always a new project. You have a project and then you have a new project. And what it gets implemented, what sees the light of our purpose, you don't know. Do the next project. And that fact wasn't for me. So I realized that I want to do something where the result of my work is more tangible. And then I went into project management. I did early projects, late projects, different indications, diabetes, oncology. And then I moved from Wuppertal to Berlin and headed the project management group for radiology. And then I moved into clinical project management. And maybe the story of that whole is I went closer and closer to real execution, where you need a long-term strategy to be successful, but you see what you do has an impact. And so that's maybe what everybody needs to get to find out what are you good at and what do you enjoy, and guide your career along those lines. Make sense?
Yeah. Every time we have this development dialogue, right, on a yearly basis. So we conduct this development dialogue to our managers. And it's always a question for me, no? Or that's always something that I find it hard. What would be my next career plan? What would be my next career journey, no? But then it's also just 2 years ago when I realized that it's really finding what you're good at and ensuring that you also enjoyed it, no? Because sometimes the tendency is that most of us, especially me, no, I tend to be aggressive. Like if there's an opportunity into this team, then I'll go for it. And then if there's an opportunity into this team, I'll go for it. But it's really not thinking strategically what I wanted to achieve. No? So I think that's also something that I've realized in the past years.
Yeah, what I do with people when I do development dialogues, typically I ask them, if you one day sit at the fire with your grandchildren, what do you want to tell them and what would make you proud if you could tell that to them? And then you kind of work your way backwards and say, what capabilities do I need and what career steps can I do? And I see the world on those different, let's say, capabilities. They have always different dimensions. So you have the work you do. There's a process you can create and there's a system you can create. And every time you look at different traits, you have different dimensions, how you can jump from one to another over time. And this is nothing that happens overnight. This happens with exposure to projects, exposure to work, the trust that your managers put in you in giving you opportunities to learn. But ultimately, you move into the next level. And, if I do interviews, for example, I look for where people are on those levels. Are they still just looking at their work or are they creating processes, for example, for work, like you do that? Or are you even considering the next level, like systems that would create an overall view on the process landscape? Just as an example, but you can use that for every dimension of a trait or capability of a person. There's always different steps and levels. And the question you need to ask for a certain job that you have in mind, which levels do you need to reach and how do you get there? And then you get into a more meaningful development dialogue. And it's not just what is my next job, but what is the learning path I need to take. Make sense?
So I agree totally. No, it's about the whole, the how, not only the what, no, because that's the tendency, especially no for like in service center, in the shared service organization, Joachim, because sometimes there's a lot of also competitors outside. There are also careers outside, no. I think that's one. So sometimes you only think about the role, you only think about the position or the role, no, without thinking the learning process, the activities, no, that you still need to gain to reach on that point. And Joachim, recently, no, I had a phase in my career wherein I became demotivated, no, during pandemic. That was 2 years ago, no. So it was a time. I think it's a combination of the new normal because we used to go to the office and then now it's all virtual calls, no. So I had a time wherein I was really demotivated, and you feel that there are times that you are dragging yourself to work, no. So I encountered that like 2 years ago, and then it was not an easy journey, no. So I really need to find new motivation. I really need to reassess, to look back on my career, what are the highlights, what are the milestones that I had, and then revisit, no, what I wanted to have in my career. So I'm not sure if I did it correctly, Joachim, no, but do you also have like these moments in your life, in your 21 years, that you felt demotivated, and what did you do, no, just to, let's say, be motivated again?
I guess, COVID was a special situation. And what I recognize in my organization, but also in society, there's a lot of anxiety, sociophobic behaviors, depressions, and we all went through phases in it. We have to recognize what we need to have a healthy life. And I give you a couple of examples, and then I will answer your question on motivation. I try to go into the office as much as possible, even through the hard times, once or twice a week, because I wanted to give people the opportunity to see me face to face if they want to. But then I had, also great long, lengthy periods of home office. What I did. So first of all, I had a very strict routine. Typically, I go on a rowing machine 15 minutes in the morning before breakfast. Then I had my breakfast, and then I took the dog for a walk every morning for 45 minutes. It's very tempting to just go to your office or to your computer and start to work. But that's not good for you. You need these schedules, you need the breaks, you need the frame in your day. If you start your day right after bed, ideally even before you brush your teeth, and then it gets derailed. And this is not good for you. You can do that a day or two, but if you do that for 2 years, it will do something with your life and your well-being. And this is important that we keep those things. Now, your question on when I get demotivated on something, I get demotivated when things get boring, and then I have fortunately the liberty to a certain extent also create and choose my projects. So I can then create structures that take care of the day-to-day, and I can say, okay, let's move in this direction. There's exciting things happening somewhere, and I can get engaged in it. But it needs always that step. And for sure, there's always the aspect of things that would repeat every day, and you have to just endure them. There's no way. So there's no perfect job. You can not only do the things that you like, but you have an influence, and the higher you get up, probably the better, the more the influence is. And I want to also kind of comment, Regina, on what you said about other companies. The way I see development of people, I'm not developing people for Bayer. I'm developing people for their life so that they get to their full potential. And if they leave to another company for a good job, yeah, that's how life is. Maybe they could do good things in other companies too. So we shouldn't be just stubborn and say it's all for Bayer. If everybody does it that way, we get great employees as an industry. And if we truly believe we're doing that for the patients, also other companies develop great drugs.
And Joachim, no, I just remember because you've mentioned about the level of influence. That's what you do when you are demotivated. Like you search for a project that will let's say makes you really excited, no, to have that project. And I think that's also what I'm grateful for in Bayer, no, because we have this internal job board. So actually, I've started in the shared service center delivery network, but I've been to different processes already, and it's because I think that's what is okay, no, that here it's different. You don't choose the project, but you choose the process, and you know what the process is all about, no. Because previously I've been handling teams wherein our stakeholders are Asia Pacific. So it's like my comfort zone, talking to stakeholders from Japan, from Korea. And now I transferred to the new team last year, and we are going to handle North America. So it's a totally different stakeholder. Mm-hmm. And that time, no, it was my motivation. Like it's more challenging maybe because it's something new for me. So I can challenge myself, no. And that's what's good with Bayer, because we have these opportunities. You can select, no, you can drive your, let's say, your own career, no, especially for me, no, who's part of the shared service center delivery network. Yeah, so nice to hear about that.
Yeah, so you do the same thing in a way. You create new exciting tasks that keep you motivated. There are different people, Regina, and we have to acknowledge that. There are different personalities. Some people do like to do the same thing every day, and they do it better every day. And there are people, and I guess you are one of those, that like challenges and new things. This is important. We have to recognize that in ourselves and to get the job that allows for those maybe to serve our needs. We are human beings. It's not, the job is there, but might not fit for everybody. if you give me a job where I have to do the same thing every day, it would kill me. But other people might thrive and be very happy in this. It is. And this is the task of managers, to put the people in the right place so that they prosper and grow and enjoy their work, because only happy employees will do good work after all.
Mm-hmm. Joachim, you're, let's say, really an experienced manager. And just to share, because I think one of the challenges that I am encountering is that there are people who is not transparent on what they want to achieve. Because I'm a believer, that you drive your own career. That's something that I've learned from my previous manager. You drive your own career. You tell your manager what you want to do. You tell your manager what are your interests. But then now that I'm a leader, there are people who might not be that comfortable to tell you what they wanted in their careers. So do you have any advice on how to encourage them to speak more, how to encourage them to trust you more as a manager, and how to encourage them to drive their own careers?
Just to understand it, you want that they trust you more, or you can't trust them because they're not transparent?
I want that they trust me more, especially because we have these dialogues, and I want to know how I can better support them in their careers. But then sometimes I don't get comments from them. They are also not sure about what they want to do. So I want also to help them, but sometimes it's hard really to push them.
Yeah. So trustworthiness, Regina, is a combination of different aspects. And there's a formula for that. I'm not a big fan of that formula, but the aspects and the items in that formula make sense. So number one, it's about credibility. So what you say, is that always based on facts? Do they say, okay, if Regina tells me something, I can rely on it. It's solid. Yeah, that's one aspect. Number two is openness. Are you approachable? Do you let them close to you? Do they feel you as a person, or are you remote to them? There's other aspects to it. Then that's kind of the upper part of your equation. So these are the points. And then it's divided by how egoistic are you? Do they have the perception you do that for yourself personally, or for the greater good?
Mm-hmm.
You can influence that, but this is how people perceive us, and this is pretty quickly done. People get this impression pretty quickly. If they get this perception that you do it for yourself and not for greater good, that has a big impact on your trustworthiness. But all those points, if you are aware of them, you can influence them. You can work on your openness. You can make sure that your credibility and honesty and reliability is high. Reliability is another factor. Are you reliable? Well, if you say what you want to do, will you do it? Will you follow through? What I'm especially looking for, that's something that takes a little bit more time. With my manager, for example, I do that always. Do they stick out their neck for me if things get rough? Do they protect themselves and just say, okay, that's not my fault, that's Joachim's fault, or do they stick out their head? So these are the behaviors. If you see them, if you exhibit them, if you stand for your people, they will trust you. It will take time.
I just realized, So basically, there's something else that I can do, in that aspect, for sure.
And then we all age and grow, Regina. You are still young, and we have certain characteristics as people, if we are younger, that are more expressed and show up more. Maybe you said earlier you are aggressive, you move from one job to another and you seek those opportunities. There will be things in your life which will take time to grow. So for me, it was the interest in people, the empathy with people that didn't, when I was 30, I was more ruthless. It was all about achieving goals. It was all about logic and reason and all these things. Not so much about the heart. But if you lead people in a big organization, most of them you lead with the heart and not with the head. You can give them all the reasons. If they don't feel it, they will not follow you. And so that was my journey from going from here to there. And you have to discover your journey. What are the things that you want to develop in your life and make you a complete person? This is important.
Yeah, I just remember, Joachim, because when I was promoted as a leader, from an individual contributor to a leader, I remember our managing director sharing to us his expectation. And then he said there was just two expectations. First is to deliver results. And second is to motivate people so that they will be able to deliver the results. So that's also, as you mentioned, no, it's really about people and process. But you cannot deliver if you do not motivate the people. So yeah, nice, and a nice reminder actually, that I heard, and I just remembered that advice I got from our previous managing director.
Yeah, and even better is if people work and deliver because they understand why. So I don't want to manipulate people. I don't want to give them the impression that I understand them and they trust me just to exploit them. This is not what it is about. It's about giving them a level of psychological safety so that they can bring their whole person to work. It's not just, I don't want to have just that little piece that people want, maybe feel comfortable in a hostile environment to bring to work. I want them to bring their whole person to work, because then they bring their creativity, they bring their ideas, their all these things that they might not bring if they don't feel safe. So this is what it is about. This is why this is so important. People should bring their whole person. And then if they understand why we do this, why we bring new medications to people, and maybe why you have to do the invoices in a certain time because you helped the machine to be successful to achieve the goal, then you don't need to motivate them anymore. They understand why they do it. And this is the highest level. There are two ways of how you can motivate people in a very successful way. There's a dark side and there's a good side. The good side we just talked about. It's about understanding why and creating an environment where people prosper and grow and like to work. And the other one with fear and pressure. And there's companies who do that. This is not the Bayer way.
Yeah. I also have another question, because that's 21 years of experience in Bayer. That's personal growth, that's leadership, that's clinical trials, no? So that's delivering the products to reach or to contribute to our vision. How do you explain your work to your friends? Like if there's someone, no, or to your kids, how do you explain your work, what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. My children, and I have 5 children. Okay, so, and they are struggling sometimes with, what is our dad doing? Yeah, what is he actually doing? And I guess you can explain it like that. You could say, we are creating the data that prove that our drugs are safe to take and effective. If you take them, you will have the benefit of the taking the drug, and they are safe. And this is what we do in these clinical trials. This is where we enroll patients in 45 countries, in thousands of clinical trial sites, and ultimately just to do that. We want to make sure that nobody is harmed with our drugs, and this is the highest ethical standards applied, and that we prove that the benefit that we promise is there. And we do this in a scientific way. There's biostatistical calculations. There's all the science behind it that proves that this is correct and can be discussed and approved by regulators. Not sure I can explain it to my children were small, but now my youngest is 10, so I guess they will get it.
Yeah, they will now understand that. Interesting.
Yeah, Regina, if I may, what are your plans for the future now? And we talked about development dialogue. So what you're doing now as a team leader, what are your aspirations maybe for the next years?
My aspiration overall, Joachim, for the shared service center delivery network challenge, or really not the challenge, but our goal is to make more contributions to Bayer as a whole. No? So I think one of my goal is really to understand more about the business. Meaning, I really exert this effort now, to read once in a while about Bayer, about its businesses, so that I can better understand what else can we do in the shared service organization. Because as I mentioned a while ago, we're processing customer master data and vendor master data accounts. And at the end of the day, we don't want to stop with that one. We don't want to stop in maintaining it. But what else can we offer, to the business so that we can also contribute, Like maybe we can come up with these reports that will enable them to say that these are the top vendors that we have. Maybe we can trim it, or maybe these are the top vendors wherein we are having delay in payments. then that's something no that can make a bigger contribution. So that's really my goal, to understand more about the business. And I'm actually interested, Joachim, in the sales and marketing function. So if there will also be an opportunity on that side. And I think understanding the business is a preparation on that, no? Because I really wanted to be involved. I really wanted to see how it works on the front line, understanding how our products goes to our consumers or to our customers. No? So probably that's it. But we still have a lot of things to do in the process. For now, it's more on automation, because to be honest, we have a lot of manual processes. So at least for this year, that's our target, to really make more automation on what we do. You imagine a lot of Excel files, a lot of documentations, a lot of manual controls that we do. So that's also our target, at least for this year. But long term, the one that I've mentioned a while ago. So that's really something that's motivating me, and also that's why I'm always happy not to hear perspective from other people, because it makes me realize how big Bayer is and how many people are making contribution towards the goal. So feeling confident and feeling motivated towards
Okay.
those goals.
And are you interested to go to other countries and see the world?
Actually, Joachim, I had an opportunity to go on business trips before, because before I'm a team lead, I'm a project person, and we're doing transition of accounting activities from the countries to Service Center Manila. So I've been to mostly Asia Pacific. I've also been in Germany twice, and also in Spain for the transition. No? So that's also something that I'm grateful with Bayer, because I got to see different cultures. I saw different people. It inspires me to really see a lot of different stakeholders. But yeah, hopefully again, since now there are, let's say, the travel restrictions, it's not strict now compared to what we have 2 years ago. No, hopefully there are also opportunities, and maybe I just thought that we can have more opportunity to see the business, at least here in the Philippines. Maybe that's something that I will tell my manager. I'm interested not to be with a Salesforce employee, to know what they are doing, because yeah, really sounds interesting.
Yeah, you should. I like that, to just spend a day with somebody shadowing them to understand what are they really doing on a daily basis. So that's interesting. But there's also opportunities for short-term assignments at Bayer. So you could just for a couple of months or a year get into another job with no risk. You can go back if it doesn't work out. So this is something I really like as an HR tool that is available. There's long-term assignments, which then obviously could move you for a longer time in another position. So there's all kind of possibilities to move around. What I believe is really important, if you do your development plan, say, hey, this is what I want to do one day, that you use that time to move around and you do different things, because most of the jobs at a certain level will require you to have seen multiple things. There's the silo or chimney careers where you stay where you are and you move up. They're not very productive, because you don't connect the dots in the organization. You don't know the bigger context, and you can't have a sound judgment on decision making that is expected from you in a bigger context. So this is why I always recommend see the world, move to other countries, other departments. If you're in the Philippines, there might be only a restricted number of, let's say, departments, because this is not a global hub. You have the shared service centers, you have a sales organization, but maybe there's opportunities to go somewhere else for you.
Hopefully, no, and yeah, that's really something that I'm also looking forward to.
Okay, Regina, it was really nice to get to know you. Thank you very much for the great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect. I learned a lot from you. I wish you all the best for your career, for your next steps, for your life, for your growth, and would be happy for passes cross one day, maybe also in person. Thank you.
Thank you as well, Joachim. It's my pleasure to be paired to you. And likewise, I learned a lot, things that I don't realize. So there's really a lot of notes as well that I have. And yeah, thank you for your time. I know that a lot of things are going on. But yeah, I really appreciate the time that you have today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.